Okay, hello everyone and welcome back to BeamNG, and today we're going to be looking at Phompsonby in the 50s. This is the rebirth of the company, as it were, following last episode where we looked at the Great Depression, aka the Big Sad, where Phompsonby really didn't do well and was very nearly bankrupt in practically everything they did. They didn't get any good cars out, really. They relied on government subsidiaries and contracts and retooling their workshops, especially for wartime, to produce wartime equipment and parts for ships, cars, planes, tanks, basically everything they could, and surviving on government contracts. So we're now into the 50s. Phompsonby has gone back and they've had a look at the customer base, the new customer base of post-war England, and they've come back with some new cars. The first of them is the Atollia, or Atollia. Either way, it's a family sedan, five-door vehicle, seating a family of four quite nicely. Nice and quiet, smooth operation, pretty small engine, just an inline 4, as is the Phompsonby standard norm. Not particularly amazing, perhaps, by any stretch of the imagination, but it was relatively affordable. Fuel efficient, relatively, easy to produce, didn't require all too many fancy parts. And most importantly, it wasn't meant to be decadent luxury like the old family line, which was their previous flagship models. Instead, they dialed it back, and they're contributing more, focusing more on the everyday person who is trying to get back to work in the post-war era, with something that's fuel efficient, capable of supporting a relatively medium or large family, and moves away from the looks of pre-war England. And so this is what we've got here, the Atollia, with its inline 4 engine. As I said, it is faster, obviously, than previous cars, but not overly fast. I think it is a 4-speed gearbox as per usual. We're sliding. Brake. Oh. And look at that. We are perfectly fine. Perfectly fine after that crash. Let's try and flip it over. Bonk. There you go. Lovely. You can barely tell the difference. So yeah, this is the Atollia. It's a pretty nice car, I do have to say. Probably one of my better post-war offerings. Is these 50s cars that we're going to be looking at here. Yeah, I quite like this thing. It's a pretty nice car. The colour was just a bit of fun. I thought, I haven't done many orange cars. You'll see later that Phompsonby sort of settles into a particular colour. Phompsonby Racing Green, which you've seen on the racing vehicles, but it becomes their sort of go-to flagship colour, Phompsonby Racing Green. But this is orange, Atollia orange. There you go. But yeah, it's a relatively nice car, pretty decent looking. Yeah, drives nice, smooth. You can do a bit of drifting if you want in it. But otherwise, it is a perfectly functional, regular family road vehicle. And, it sold pretty decently. It sold so well, in fact, that taxi companies started using it. And you can find in London the black cab version of the Atollia, taking people around the capital, and indeed around anywhere they wanted, really. There you go. Took a bit of time there, but there you go. Yeah, took people everywhere they wanted to go. Simple black cab colour. I managed to make this with a scoop and a taxi taxi thing that I found on the automation workshop. But yeah, it's otherwise unchanged from the default Atollia. It's just well, it's just in black. It's a black London black cab. What do you want? Phompsonby logo, the classic Phompsonby bonnet detail, and the Phompsonby writing on there. Managed to keep that in the transition to post-war Britain. You know, got to keep that on there. Obviously, that's kind of a Phompsonby staple, is to have the company name and the logo, and obviously the bonnet ornament as much as we can. However, black cab companies were not the only people to be taking out contracts with the Phompsonby under the Atollia, because the police also wanted a bit of the Atollia, a saloon car, to chase the criminals in. As it loads in here, there you go. The police also wanted a bit of the Atollia, and yeah, the police logoing on the side there hasn't actually worked out as it should have done. It was meant to be in black, but for some reason in the transition from automation to BeamNG here, it is in white, but it does say police on there. Just imagine that is in black. Some extra lighting on the front, some chroming here and there, and obviously police. That's pause. Obviously the police light bar on top, which does turn on. I just don't know my controls for the lights and things, but I think it's on indicators, or at least emergency indicators is where the light bar flashes on. But it is in post-war in England Metropolitan Police colour scheme. The Atollia itself, I think I might have tuned this engine ever so slightly to give it a bit more acceleration. Almost landed it. A bit more acceleration for the police, but it's otherwise relatively unchanged. Atollia. Engine started to oil, can't have that. Let's flip it over, see if it still works. It's not looking good, I'm going to be honest with you. But it works well enough. We can catch crims and lock them up in your community. Nice and simple. But yeah, that is the Atollia. The sort of saloon edition of Phompsonby's big rebirth back into the post-war market. But what if the saloon was too much for you? What if the saloon was, you don't need such a big saloon, it was out of your price range perhaps? Well, good news, because there is other Phompsonby models that came out during this decade, notably the Greenwich. The Greenwich and its variant, the Woolwich. So, is the Greenwich. It is a far smaller vehicle, as you can tell, for cheaper, with a less powerful engine. I think that's an inline 3 that's in there. Sort of similar looking detailing on it. The Phompsonby badging has been moved to the back, which is one of the first instances that we see of it being moved to the back. Obviously, you've then got the Greenwich writing on the back there. It's not going to be as fast, it's definitely not as fast in accelerating either. However, it is a far more affordable, smaller, easier to park, cheaper to make, cheaper to maintain, cheaper to run, and all that sort of good stuff that your average Joe consumer needs when petrol is still being rationed. Which petrol rationing obviously eventually went away, but again, some of this chroming hasn't actually properly came out, such as the bumper and the bumper and the wing mirrors. They are meant to be chrome, as you can tell from the fact that, you know, the rear bumper's chrome and everything. So it is meant to be chrome, just imagine that it actually is. Some fog lighting down the front there. Oh, we're fine. That Phompsonby build quality has meant that absolutely nothing has particularly gone wrong with this. But yeah, it is just your nice little Morris-looking vehicle, which I did. Some of these bodies are found on the Steam Workshop for automation, such as this body, which is very nice because it's a sort of 50s European car, which is very useful for me. But yeah, so that is the Greenwich. There is obviously, as you may have seen, the police did invest into some Greenwich vehicles as well, which we have got here. See if the lettering has actually come out properly, or at least some lettering has come out on the doors. Lettering may be chrome, there it is. That's not come out properly. I have had to white out the door in order to get it, to be an actual white door. But yeah, again, in police colours. Oh, it's set to brake lights. Interesting. But yeah, so like the Atollia, this is just a police colour scheme. Again, I may have slightly tweaked the engine to try and get it some more acceleration, and perhaps top speed in comparison to the default, or standard, I should say, Greenwich. However, for all intents and purposes, this is a mostly identical version of the Greenwich, with a police light bar at the top, some police lighting, and all of that good stuff that every police officer needs when they're on the beat. So yeah, that's just a police version of the Greenwich. Not too much to be said there. Just Phompsonby vehicles for the Met, much like the old, dedicated police car there. And finally, you have also got the Woolwich, which is a longer adaptation of the Greenwich. There it is. So yeah, this is more for tradespeople, perhaps. You can obviously fit more in the boot area. However, it could also be for larger families. It could also be for a variety of things, not just for tradespeople. Plenty of average consumers may well have purchased the Woolwich. When they particularly might need it for going on holiday, perhaps you can convert this into a quite a nice sort of camper van almost, or at least pack lots of supplies for those longer holidays away in the Lake District or Cotswolds, or down to Cornwall perhaps. Yeah, there's lettering on the back again, much like the Greenwich. There's the Woolwich writing there. It's a side opening door, so unlock, swing. And yeah, the engine itself hasn't actually changed. It is the same engine, I believe, as the Greenwich, just in a different colour. In this case, there's your aerial mast right there, and yeah, it's just your nice cheaper offering, at least from Phompsonby, for your 50s consumer. Oh, we got straight over it. Go on. Yes. Let it roll, and then we'll try and drive it away. Can't land on the wheels? Yes, on the wheels. And we still drive. Just look at that. That'll buff out. Driving has not been compromised at all, as you can tell from my incredibly straight driving. It may need a bit of work. But all these vehicles were successes on the market and did successfully revitalise the company in the post-war era, and gave them hope for a comeback. There is one more vehicle to show, at least for this era, because the racing division didn't come back yet. The racing division will come back, however, it did not come back yet. They were taking some time away from racing to focus more on getting, the consumer market back. But this is the compact, which is relatively compact. I say that as I haven't actually checked it compared to anything. Let's compare it to something a bit smaller, such as the Greenwich here. Spawn new. Yeah, it's more compact. Yeah, thank God for that. I'm not actually lying to the consumer here. It is actually smaller. But yeah, so this is the compact. Phompsonby logoing obviously on the back there. Rear boot, front engine. Rear engine, front boot. There it is. Sideways inline 3, very small engine. But it is meant to be a sort of microcar, part of the sort of microcar craze that happened around this time, unless I'm incorrect. I don't know my car lore, my car history, at least IRL car lore and history, at least all that much. So I don't know exactly when the microcar phase was, but you had things like the Isetta, which came out at some point, as well as the Messerschmitt. So yeah, some microcars were definitely around, and this is kind of Phompsonby's foray into the microcar phase. Worst selling of the group: Atollia, Greenwich, Woolwich, and obviously the compact didn't quite fit in there. Didn't quite have the sort of market that they particularly wanted. Anybody who was buying this car would have more likely been buying one of them, a Greenwich, or a Woolwich if they wanted slightly bigger, or if they had a larger family, then the Atollia would have been perfect for them. You will notice, however, there was no high retail car. There was no car that was for the decadent luxury, because there's just no need for it. These cars were selling perfectly well enough. The time of Phompsonby as a premium motor manufacturer, sort of almost catering to the expensive populace, was over, and instead we got the far cheaper cars for the everyday person, and that continues more into the 60s, which is also when racing comes back. So look out for that next episode. And I've been forgetting to say it the last couple of times, but if there's a desire for it, I will make a Google Drive and have the zip files for these BeamNG mods in there for you to download, and I'll eventually probably also upload them to the BeamNG repository and stuff like that. However, if you want to manually install them, I will, and if there is a desire for it, people in the comments let me know. Then I will put them all in a Google Drive, and you can download all of these to play with them yourself. But with that, I will thank you for watching, and goodbye.